Subtracting integers is the first thing we're going to look at. -2 minus 3. You can do this the same way as adding integers, even though it is subtracting. You can do that by changing the problem. Instead of -2 minus 3, this is the same thing as -2 plus a -3. Notice that we get rid of the minus sign and trade it with plus a negative. That's the same thing as minus. Once you do that, then you are able to go back and do 2 negatives, 3 negatives. How many negatives do I have altogether? What's the answer? -5. Or look at it on a number line. If I have 0 here and -2 there, if I start at -2 and I take away 3, I start here and I'm going to take away something. If I take away something, I go back this direction. And I'm going to go back 1, 2, 3. That is a -5. In this case, I have 5 minus a -4. 5 minus a -4 can be changed. Anytime you have a double negative like this, minus a negative is considered a double negative. You can switch that out. Instead of minus a negative, you can just make it plus. 5 plus 4 is 9. This is -3 minus a -7. What can I do to these two signs here? Make it positive, yes. So it's -3 plus 7. Double negative changes to plus. And now you have a negative plus a positive. You can do 3 negative signs and 7 positive signs. You can cancel these 3 negatives with these 3 positives. What does that leave me with? 4. The answer is +4. 5 minus 8. You can change this. Instead of 5 minus 8, you can make it 5 plus a -8. Minus a positive is the same thing as plus a negative. When you do that, you can put in 5 positive signs and then 8 negative signs. Cancel where you can. What am I left with?
3.
3 what?
Negatives.
So the answer is -3. Another way you can do this is looking at a number line like this. And here is a +5. And I'm going to take away 8. +5, take away 8. I will start here, and if I take away a positive, I go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What number is this? -3. Alright, so we go to Mackenzie. What's the answer to the first one? -4 is right. Porter, what's the answer to the second one? Say what? It's not going to be 1. Ramey, what's the answer to the second one? -4 is right. If I start at -2 and I take 2 away, I'm going to go back 2 on the number line. So I'd be at -4. Or you can change this to plus a negative. 2 negatives plus 2 negatives is 4 negatives. Reinhardt, what's the answer to the third one? It's not going to be -4. Roberts, what's the answer to the third one? It should be 4. What happens to these two signs here? That's right, they changed to plus, so it's 2 plus 2, which is 4. Samson, what's the answer to the last one? 0 is right. I have 2 positives, 2 negatives, adding them together. They cancel completely out, so I would have 0. What happens to these two signs? They become plus, so -2 plus 4. That means I have 2 negatives and 4 positives. Cancel, cancel, and I'm left with a +2. So what can I change this -9 to? Is what? He was sneezing over you. What say again? That's right. So 4 plus a -9. And then I will end up with 4 positives and then 9 negatives. So I can cancel out these 4 positives with these 4 negatives and be left with what? -5. A equals -3, B equals -2. You have to substitute in those values for A and B where you see them. So A is -3. -3 minus, and B is a -2. Whenever you have back-to-back signs, you should put that second number in parentheses if it turns out to be negative, like a -2 going in for B. What happens to these two signs here? Plus, so -3 plus 2. I end up with 1, 2, 3 negatives, 2 positives, and I cancel these out with these. What am I left with? -1. A is -1, and then minus B, which is 4, and then plus C, that's a -5. You just do these in order from left to right. -1 minus 4. That's the same thing as -1 plus a -4. And then we have plus a -5. So for the first two, I have one, or not two, but just 1 minus sign or negative sign, and then 4 negatives. How many negatives do I have so far? I have 5, so -5 and then plus a -5. How many negative signs are there? 10, so the answer is -10. Multiplying integers. The rules to remember for multiplying integers are the following. Positive times positive is positive. Positive times negative is negative. Negative times positive is negative. Negative times negative is positive. If the signs are the same, such as 2 negatives, 2 positives, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, then the answer is negative. What is the answer to the problem at the top of the screen? -6. -2 times 3 is -6 because one's negative, one's positive. According to the chart down here, negative positive gives me a negative answer. 2 times 3 is 6. What's the answer to this one? -20 is right. Signs are different, multiply the numbers, answer is negative. What's the answer to this one? +42. If the signs are the same, then the answer is positive. 2 negatives multiplied together give you a positive. In this case, here's the rule you have to remember when you're multiplying more than one number together. Actually, there are two ways you can do it. One, just do two at a time. This times this, get an answer, and then multiply it by this. And your signs will go along with you. Negative times negative is positive. Positive times a negative would be negative. Or you can remember this. If you have an odd number of negative signs, then the answer is negative. If you have an even number of negative signs, the answer is positive. How many negative signs do we have in this multiplication problem? 3. So will the answer be positive or negative? Negative. What is the answer to the problem? Negative 10, right. 2, 1, and 5 multiplied will give us 10. We have 3 negative signs. That's an odd number, so the answer is negative 10. What's the answer to this problem? How many negative signs are there? And if you have an even number of negative signs, what sign is the answer? Positive. What's the answer? 10. What's the answer to this problem? Remember, you can multiply in any order. Yeah. Oh, I thought you had the answer. What's 4 times 5? What's 20 times 3? 60. How many negative signs are there? 1. What's the sign of the answer? Negative. So it's negative 60. How many negative signs are in this problem? 3 negative signs. What's the sign of the answer? Negative. What is 6 times 2? 12. So we really end up with 12 times. What's 4 times 2? 8. 12 times 8 is 96. So negative 96.